Hello everybody, it's just Sherry Ann again. You see, after the next few days I won't be able to post many clips. I'll only be able to post clips on weekends. So I figure I'm going to cram as many clips as I can into my YouTube before can't have the chance. Oh my god, my brain just went blank. That happens to me a lot. It's like I start speaking and I forget what I'm saying as I'm saying it. My short-term memory is horrible. Kind of like Finding Nemo, you remember that movie? The little bluefish, Ellen DeGeneres, Dory? Yeah, well, that's me on most days. Very bad short-term memory, but that's okay. That's why I'm preserving my words in these video clips. Because it's fun, and then I can go back and watch them. So I'm going to get deeply personal with this clip. This will probably be the last clip I post for a while. I'm just going to, give myself a week or so to rest and relax. But this one is very, very, very deeply personal. And I'm not afraid to share deeply personal things with the world. Because the more personal it is, the more people can relate to it. The more people can be inspired by it. I always say the first step towards personal success is self-discovery. I've said it for years. In order to discover what you're meant for and what your talent is and what your destiny is, you need to first accept yourself just the way you are for who you are. Well, I have numerous people in my life right now telling me that I need to hide the fact that I suffer mental illnesses because it's destructive to my reputation. I don't agree with that 100 at all. To be honest, I'm not even allowed to be around my 4-year-old little girl right now unsupervised because everybody fears my mind so much that they believe that I need to be supervised with her when I've never been anything but wonderful to her and I have no risk to her at all. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just stating a fact. But I'm okay with that. I will appreciate the time I do have with her right now while she's little because she's amazing and she's my universe. And by sharing this story with you, I'm enlightening you in a little way on kids and how beautiful little children can be impacted by this world and the fact that we have a responsibility as parents to provide our children with as much joy as possible in the 5 years of their formative years. Children don't have the limitations of impossible. Children can achieve anything. And if they are given nothing but joy and satisfaction and dignity and love, then they don't know anything else. You'd be amazed at what children could create, which is why I believe this story is important for me to share, and why this is the last video clip I'm posting for a while. Because I'm starting to get tired, and I have a lot to accomplish, but I will post video clips soon. Anyways, let's get started on with the story. When I was approximately 3 years old, I started being abused by a pedophile. I don't want your pity, so don't give me it. I don't need pity. There was a reason that happened. And no, I will never name his name, because I've forgiven him and that's what matters. If he hadn't done what he did, then I wouldn't be the girl I am today, and I think the girl I am today is a beautiful person. So just bear with me as I go through this story. From the ages of 3 to 4, I was abused off and on sexually by a pedophile. My parents were not aware of it, but they were suspicious of something because I changed drastically overnight. It wasn't a slow thing. I went from being a bubbly, vivacious, vibrant little kid, full of life, to impacted by horrible traumas and terrors and night terrors and wetting my bed and bowel problems and kidney and bladder infections. I was phobic of almost everything. I clung to my mother's leg. Drastically changed. So they knew something had happened, but they didn't know what it was. So they just did their best they could to comfort me and get me through it. I've talked to my therapists, and I believe that the first time I had a full-blown psychotic break was at 4 years old, if not 3 years old, when it first started happening. And because the subconscious mind is so huge and so terrifying, even for grown-ups, that's what causes psychotic breaks. So imagine how terrifying it would be for a 4-year-old to break into subconscious mind. So anyways, I believe this happened to me, and there is proof. There is, if you talk to my parents, they will be able to share that with you and enlighten you. And it's time the world is enlightened as well. Due to the fact that this was happening to me and I didn't know how to cope, I found my own way to cope because I was too afraid to tell anyone. My father, who is my hero, used to snuggle up with me and watch the Disney show. And it was my absolute favorite time with him because we really didn't have much affection other than that. I remember being horribly sick once with a cold, and Dad pulled out the hide-a-bed in the living room and put Vicks Vapor Rub on me and put an onion beside my bed and sat there or slept beside me to make sure I was okay because I was having trouble breathing. So anyways, after this happened to me, my mind created an imaginary friend. Okay? Yes, I did have an imaginary friend. In actuality, most kids have an imaginary friend. Adults rob them of it because adults don't understand it. My daughter, little Destiny, she's 4. She has an imaginary friend called Rainbow that she 100% believes is real, and I let her because it's okay. So my mind created an imaginary friend, and it was triggered by a movie I watched with my dad on the Disney show, and it was Sleeping Beauty. Well, little did I know that Sleeping Beauty would forever alter my life permanently. Sleeping Beauty became my hope and my inspiration. You see, my dad is an identical twin, and my dream was always to have an identical twin, just like him. And when this movie came on, I realized that this girl was 2 girls, one mind. One half of Aurora was sad and disappointed and discouraged and fearful. The other half of Aurora was vibrant and full of life and embraced nature. So at 4 years old, I realized that there can be 2 people in the same mind. What a revelation, hey? Didn't realize that until my late 20s what actually happened, but now that I know, it's not scary anymore. Well, I could actually see Aurora with my eyes, consciously, in the mirror. I gave her the name Aurora to honor the beautiful character from Disney's Sleeping Beauty. When I would look in the mirror, I wouldn't see me. I wouldn't see the broken spirited little girl with, thrift store clothes. When I looked in the mirror, I would see an absolutely beautiful little princess with beautiful red ringlets and ball gowns and gorgeous clothes and perfect white teeth, and she was amazing. She was everything I ever dreamed of being. And it was the funniest thing, because I actually remember touching that mirror as a child. I was so fascinated by what I was seeing that I reached out to touch the mirror. And when I touched the mirror, my finger slipped into the mirror. And at that moment, which was probably during a psychotic break, and I was probably having hallucinations as a child, she became reality. She was no longer fantasy. Children don't understand fantasy. They can't differentiate the line between real and fantasy. So in my reality, she was real. And every time I was in pain, every time I was scared, I called out to her with my mind and she would come and take my place. It helped me heal through a crisis that was horrible for me to endure at that age. Then, in my teen years, I was traumatized again by things that were happening. And because my formative years, I formed the ability to create imaginary friends and make them reality in my formative years, I created another one. I had a breakdown in my teen years. My worst breakdown in my teen years was 19 years old. I was put in the hospital for 3 days, basically catatonic. Don't need to know the reasons, just that it happened. And when my mind fractured that deeply again, I created a second goddess. And I named her Pandora, because my father was fascinated with Pandora's box. And I loved the Rubik's Cube. So I envisioned the Rubik's Cube as Pandora's box. And I kept her cordoned off in my subconscious to protect her and myself from people knowing about her. Then, I was traumatized as an adult. My mind fractured repeatedly, over and over and over and over and over, due to the traumas that I was experiencing. It wasn't one incident, it was just numerous. And every time my fractured mind would experience a new trauma, it broke off into another piece. Now, the reason why I named this goddess Spectra is because I love rainbows. And Spectra is the plural form of spectrum. So every time my mind shattered, it created another facet of my mind. Kind of like a diamond in the rough. I just haven't found the right jeweler yet. So there you have it. It's out in the open, and I'm just going to roll with it. Some days, I'm a baby goddess named Aurora. Some days, I'm a teen goddess named Pandora. And some days, I'm an adult goddess named Spectra, like a prism or an oracle that shimmers for the people around me as long as they treat me with kindness. And then, in everyday life, I'm just Sherry Ann, just a real girl, talking to you straight from my soul. I hope you have a wonderful day today, just because you can. If you want it bad enough and you accept yourself, flaws and all. I love you all. You're beautiful.